welcome back to Printing at Home with me, Ruth Ander. So you've made a series of prints or some artwork on paper that you're moderately pleased with, and you want to make them look really good, ready to be photographed, mounted and framed. You want to get rid of the finger marks and the misalignment, but you want to keep the beautiful edges and the intentional marks. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how I make my work look good, whether it's to share it online, enter an exhibition, or get ready to frame it. Presenting it well really makes a difference. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through what I do to crop, float mount and prepare my work to be photographed. And remember, you need to do this before you wrap it in cellophane or take it to the framers. So even if your work has uneven edges like mine often does, or isn't aligned on the paper, I'm going to show you how to use simple tools like rulers, cutting mats and archival tape to get great looking results. I'm Ruth and I make handprints in my tiny studio in Bristol, UK, helping artists deepen their practice through hand printing at home and all the other things that come with that. Do subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos, or better yet, join my email list via the link in the description below and you get monthly inspiration, top tips, practical videos, plus my new free guide, How to Be a Rebel Printmaker. Right, if you're ready to let your work shine, then let's dive in. So here is the series of prints that I am going to crop down and mount ready for photography. There's actually a series of 4. They're quite big. Now this one here I've already cropped it down right to the edge as part of the process. So I'm not going to do anything more to that. I'm going to be float mounting that straight on to the mount board, just like that. And then I've got a couple here. So these are on etching paper, so it's quite thick paper. But what I've done, the original print has not been aligned very well when I printed it. So I've got a nice thin bit of paper here, but much thicker pieces here and here and here. So I'm going to try and equal those out, but equally I don't want to get rid of this probably because I quite like this overlapping over the edge. So what I will do, in fact, look, it's really thin here, so I may have to go really quite close to the edges on that one. And actually very similar with this one here as well. I've got a much thinner, smaller amount of paper at the bottom here than I have on the sides and the top. So it's not too much of a problem. I can just cut it down so that it's straight all round, as straight as I can at any rate. But I do want to leave, I want to show these edges, which is chine collé going over the edges. So I will try and do that. And then this one here is on Japanese paper, which is lovely. It's not quite straight, so I can cut these lines here to straighten it a little bit. There is a small rip in the top there, so I probably want to get rid of that. And these odd marks here, which I think on the when I printed it on the press. So what I will try and do is make that equal around the edges and straight, but still show the lovely paper itself and the deckled edge, which it hasn't got at the moment, but when I rip it, it will have a lovely ripped edge, which should look really good. Okay, so I'm going to start here with the Japanese paper piece, just because it's a little bit harder to do, to crop down. So the first thing to do is just figure out where is the shortest space between your actual print and the edge of your paper. And in this case, it's this section here. So that is the kind of the level I'm going to go for, the amount I'm going to go for. So what you need is a metal ruler, ideally, sort of fairly heavyish metal ruler. I've got a cup of water here and I've got some kitchen towel. And what I'm going to do is just basically dampen the edge of the kitchen towel. You don't really need to do this for the thicker papers, and you might even not need to do it with the really thin papers, but for Asian paper and often for tissue paper, it's best to dampen the ruler before you attempt to rip your paper. Now I do like to rip paper, especially the Asian papers, because the ripped edge is really lovely, and I often mount things up showing the edge, in fact almost always showing the edge. So a nice ripped edge is a lovely thing to try and do. So what's happening here is I'm pushing my metal ruler down. I'm actually just going to pull my paper down a bit, yeah. along the line that I want to rip, and this should be hopefully slightly weakening the paper enough to rip it. And there we go, it's starting to come away. So I am doing this by eye. I'm kind of laying the ruler down where the shortest gap from print to edge is, and then just kind of trying to do it by eye along that line. You can measure it, of course, absolutely fine. I do find that it's usually okay doing it by eye. And here we go, it is ripping off rather nicely. So this one, I don't need to dampen the ruler because it's actually etching paper. This is a little bit easier to rip. Still has a lovely ripped edge when you do it. I'm going to be cropping it so that where I've gone over the edges with the sheen collé and the collage, I keep those, and that does mean that it is going to be slightly uneven here, but I kind of don't mind that. That actually, when it's intentional and it looks like it's meant to be like that, when it's actually float mounted, it looks fine, I think, anyway. It is part of the artwork, so a small amount of variation is fine. And here we go, I'm just ripping against the edge of the ruler. To at least get a straight edge, which I think you do need to do, because that never really looks intentional. So it does need to be straight at least. So there we go, a slightly uneven edged but straight edged piece ready to mount up. I'm going to do the same with this one here. It's going to have slightly uneven edges, but I do want to have this bit that's gone over the edge, this collage bit, I want that showing. So it's going to be intentional but slightly uneven. And there we go, at least straight edged if not even edged, but that will look fine when it's float mounted. So this is what I've ended up with. These are the 4 pieces. They've either been cropped down right to the edge or at least straight edged if not slightly uneven, to allow for my collage going over the edges. So these are going on to the next phase, which is mounting. So here I've got a large piece of archival mount board. I'm just measuring out, I'm just placing the pieces on top basically and measuring out where I need to cut it, and then I'm going to cut it to the right size. So I kind of allow for about 5 centimeters around the edge, sometimes a little bit less than that if I haven't got the mount board, and just cutting it down to size. So the first thing that you need to do is just check that your edges are fairly clean, and usually an eraser will deal with any little marks that are gone onto your edges, but it is worth doing. It does make a difference, just keeps those edges clean. And then we're moving on to float mounting your piece onto the piece of mount card that you've cut. So I use archival tape, pH neutral tape, and I'm showing you on the etching paper here. You can get this from most framers. I just ask for it at my framers and they will sell it to me. But you can also use hinging tissue for your transparent art. I haven't shown it in this video, but I'll put the link below. And that does exactly the same thing, and you use it in exactly the same way. I'm just cutting 2 pieces, one sticky facing up, one sticky facing down, and I am placing them into each corner of the back of the artwork. So I'm just going to do the other 2 corners as well. If it's a really big piece, you could add some more, but I find actually that generally speaking, just putting it in the corners works well for me. And there we go. We just flip the artwork over. You should have 4 sticky bits on each corner now, and then you're just going to place it onto your mount card, line it up so it's fairly straight, and then press down, apply pressure by hand. And there we go. And so we're now ready to photograph the work, and I'm doing this in my studio, which has got lots of light in, thankfully, and I tend to use a white sheet just at the back. The photographs are going to be quite close in, so you're not going to see much of that sheet, but it's just going to reflect the light and be a neutral background. So just making sure there's no shadows, and I can take the photographs. I usually take a full view of the piece with the edges showing. I then often take a cropped view, and then I'll also take some details as well. And then once that's done, you've got a record, a high-res record of your piece, and you can go ahead and either wrap it up ready for selling unframed, or you can take it to your favourite framers and get it framed up. But I think you'll agree, they look really good with that extra white space around them, with the edges tidied up a little bit, but not too much. So I hope that's helped you think about the last part of making art, the presentation. So it's taken me quite a few years to come up with this method, but I think it works really well. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.